led by Kurt White on retail and where we are in retail recruitment. So I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
With that, we'll turn it over to Kurt.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone, Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks for taking some time to discuss this afternoon. The purpose of this session is really twofold, I think. It's one, to just give an update on the strategy that staff has used in collaboration with Buxton for retail recruitment in the town, and some updates about some of the successes that we've seen throughout this process. And then secondly is to really give you all the chance to provide some questions or comments, general feedback in advance of Buxton's visit in July. They will be here July, I believe it's the first commissioners meeting of July, the 11th. And if there's anything that you want them to go ahead and that I can't answer today, if you'd like to do a deeper dive on a particular issue, particular subject, then this would be a great time for me to be able to take that down, and so they can be working on it and be prepared so that when they come in July, it'll be as productive as possible and make sure that the board gets everything they need from that. So with that, I'm just going to go over some of starting just with an update of the retail recruitment efforts that the town has been taking a part in and really leading. And I'm going to do that by going through our strategy. That we have a 5-pronged strategy that we've been working, and I'll go through each one of these with some updates along the way. The first is to establish a trade area. And we've talked about this before. We really have established 4 distinct trade areas: downtown, Prescott Village, Curitan, and Gray Byram, the intersection there, to really, because they're very distinct, each one of those market areas, if you look at 3 5-mile rings around those areas. So in terms of their demographics, traffic counts, growth rates even, they're different. And so we've established those unique trade areas. We break it down with these trade area snapshots that you can see here. Real high level population, households, growth, education, age, and then we take the demographics of each one of those trade areas and compare it. I took away the retailers' names down here on the left, but just to illustrate that we then take the retailers' locations and compare them directly to those same criteria in our trade area. That's how we help identify who the best potential matches are. So we're not just shooting in the dark, and also so that we can provide the best story.
So how do we look at the square food line that goes across the street to CVS and some office space there? How is that viewed? What trade area does that fit into?
That is encompassed the northern part of downtown, because with our downtown trade area, it's encompassed in that. And really, south of Pine Oak is when the demographics really take a very different characteristic as far as the population density, growth, really every meaningful factor that retailers look at. So the food line fits closer with downtown than it would with the areas further north. The next step in the strategy is logically to target the retailers, to use that information to make data-driven matches, and then to follow up regularly and always be building a pipeline. We've gotten Buxton matches that we target, and we've also got some staff-led matches as well. Buxton's provided us 40 matches so far, because as part of their contract, it's 20 per year. We're in the second year now. And of those 40, this is the breakdown of who they have matched us with as far as retail categories. And those line up pretty nicely with our retail leakage numbers here. So not only does Buxton use the trade area demographics to select targeted retailers, but they also look at our town's retail leakage numbers so that they're targeting to those areas where perhaps we have the biggest opportunity for growth or the biggest need. Through that process, we've gotten a lot of leads. We've had meaningful conversations with, these are decision makers at these retailers. These are your head of Atlantic Coast Real Estate. These are your COOs and folks like that. So they've been very productive conversations and some really fruitful feedback. We've also gotten what I just called here a bench of interested retailers and restaurants. And those are ones who say, hey, yeah, we would be in Waxhaw today if we had a franchisee, if you had this kind of a co-tenant. So, for example, Dress Barn likes to be near a DSW, for example, but we don't have that yet. But it's good that we're on their radar now because it's really a long game, and so it's good to be on the radar. Besides franchisees and co-tenancy, another example would just be we don't build our own space, but we need 9,000 square feet. Tell us when you have a development that might have that. It's because they want a lease. Most of them don't develop their own centers. So we've also gotten a greater understanding of who we are as a market. That helps us with our targeting. And then I've gone over these before, but some of the biggest hurdles we still hear is daytime population, which goes down by as much as 75% during the day. Co-tenants, traffic counts, and cannibalization refers to when another retailer is within that retailer's same trade area. So there was a fast casual burger restaurant who has a location in Blakeney. They consider that within a 10-minute drive time of Waxhaw, and so they passed on Waxhaw for that reason. 10 minutes, it depends on what time of day, but biggest strengths still is our income, our family demographics, and our growth rate, of course. So we're attractive. We check all the right boxes, but we just don't have enough of those people yet. Who the retailers we're targeting are looking for. And it's also given what probably the most valuable and most flexible and kind of empowering piece of the Buxton contract has been the data that they've provided that staff can now take and use for varying purposes. Not only retail outreach, but we've used it for we use it as through the CDBG grant process to determine income and households potentially served by a CDBG grant project. So the data is very flexible, and it's been very helpful for community development as well. Through staff outreach, so this is kind of separate from Buxton, reaching out to people who are not necessarily part of our 40 matches. We did identify 2 fast casual restaurants, and one of them actually has a signed lease and is going into the Curitan, or plans to go into the Curitan out parcel that's in plan review right now. That's through the data that Buxton was able to provide us. We were able to help facilitate that process. Grocery stores. There's still a lot of grocer interest. We've reached out. We did a tour of Waxhaw with one recently following the ICSC conference. We had a visit to Charlotte to a local Charlotte-based specialty grocer we visited a few months ago, and there's actually another who's just breaking into the United States market on the East Coast, and they're also interested as well. So it's good for us to be able to be ready with the data when and if they come asking. We also stay in touch with the local brokerage network, also through the ICSC contacts as well. That's kind of town-wide. Downtown specifically, I don't want to say it's easier, but it's when you're dealing with the local and regional folks, and we have such an attractive market downtown, it's downtown stays full. And we've been able to use some of the data here with Buxton to influence the Irish Pub's decision to locate at the former Mamalinas. They came and sat down with us and said, hey, tell us who you are. Before we come, our property owner suggested we come talk to the town. Do you have families? do you have, what are your numbers in the downtown area? Sugar Handmade, you may have seen the Charlotte Observer a couple weeks ago. They are in the process of getting a space downtown as well. Pelicans asked the same questions. And so then existing Main Street businesses as well who are considering expanding, they want to see those numbers too. So it's been helpful to be able to have those have that to be able to provide and tailor to people's needs. Next part of the third part of the strategy is to work with our partners. I talked about the local brokerage network. We talk to the Chamber of Commerce pretty frequently. We collaborate with them on a lot of their ribbon cuttings. Most recently was the Espresso grand opening that I know several commissioners and the mayor were at last week. And then proactive marketing is a key piece of our strategy as well. We've worked closely with Jenny to make sure that we're sending a message that's consistent with our brand. This is a sheet, and actually you can, if you wanted to pass this out, Jenny helped us create this, and we were passed this out at the shopping centers conference in March, just to be able to do some proactive marketing. Through that, Dennis and I actually went to the conference, and we were able to market the town. A follow-up from that conference was, as I mentioned, we had a tour with a broker who handles a grocery chain's location, site selection decisions, and we went around with her immediately following the conference just to give her a taste of Waxhaw. To be able to add the on-the-ground view of Waxhaw and tell that story really enhanced the data, and they were very excited. Another piece that we do that we're just about to be able to roll out is something called an LSMX tool. This is actually for businesses. We'll have license for 25 businesses in Waxhaw to use this for free of charge. It's a marketing tool that a business can use to essentially it puts Buxton in the palm of their hands. So they could draw a circle around Waxhaw and learn about who the customers are, and then actually the app will do targeted Facebook, Google ad, and print mail campaigns to just the customers that match their desired demographic. And so we're getting 25 licenses from this is through Buxton, and we'll have more details about that in the next month or so. So it's a benefit it's really a business retention tool. Last thing on marketing is the Downtown Economic Impact Report. If you'll check the website, the downtown section of the website, we've created a new thing also, thanks to Jenny for making it look nice, because that's not my forte. But with really trying to tell the story of downtown specifically, and just show that it really has an outsized impact based on its size. It's 0.11 square miles out of over 8 in the town, and it's got, as you see, 38% of all the restaurants, over half of all the offices, and that's not by square footage, but just in terms of number. And so this is another step we're taking to just try to generate interest, not necessarily as much towards residents or tourists, but for potential businesses. So that's all I have. I wanted to just really hear from you all. Thoughts on the approach? Anything you're hearing from the community? Is there anything that you would like us to prepare in advance of Buxton? Go for it.
I have a question.
Sure.
Out of the 40 that Buxton has recommended over the past 2 years, how many have actually come to Waxhaw, come to fruition?
Well, the one.
1 out of 40?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, first question, data. Do you feel that the data quality has lived up to what the original initial intent of the contract was to figure out what's going on in Waxhaw and who can we market, sell to, who are we attracted to, et cetera? Are you happy with the data, the platform, and all that stuff? And has that given us a tool to be able to better target the market, if you will?
Yes, absolutely. You have census data that's available to anyone, but the challenge with it is how frequently it's updated and how granular you can tailor it to either your needs, the story you want to tell, or your specific area. And what Buxton does is we can no matter what category of retailer or restaurant it is, we can tell the story that would be most appealing to that restaurant, most applicable to them. And it's immediate. And um, and it can be led by staff. So it's been helpful. It's a very robust platform.
Second question is, how has our profile changed with the coming online of Waverly?
That's a good question. Yeah. So I kind of been going back and forth with Buxton about that, and because I didn't think they were giving enough weight to that. Perhaps they didn't understand the scale, but some of our retailers who were matches, we had to eliminate from our list, either because they were already going into Waverly, two specifically that are going into Waverly that we had to eliminate. And then in general, some folks who would have been competitors or just didn't want to locate that close. So it has changed. An example, similar example, is there was a development on 521 and is it Jim Wilson? There's a pet store, and we were a match for a pet store, and we even got to the point where we were having a conversation with them, and they pulled out once they found out that. So it does affect us. It really does.
Third question, we have parcels that have been sitting idle for years. Ashton Properties, right behind the ABC store. Are we actively using this data or trying to develop plans to actually bring to closure some difficult spots like that?
Yeah, the Aston Properties is one that so when we go to these conferences, for example, we want to come armed with something as far as where to put people. Because you can go and talk all day about, hey, come to Waxhaw, it's great. But then when the first question they ask is, well, what do you have? And so when we go, we come with the Aston, we come with the Prescott, we come with the Curitan out parcels. So yeah, we work with those brokers, so we let them know, and they provide us the additional marketing tools. So we kind of help through that process. Yeah.
Has the planning department looked at some of those parcels and say, hey, realistically, what wouldn't work? The example I'm thinking of is you brought something forward for the Ashton property, but realistically, this board realized that a drive-through was not probably the best thing to come out on Cuthbertson,
Right.
In that manner. It just wasn't a good fit traffic-wise for that intersection.
Right. That's a good thought. I'll talk with them about that. Yeah. Take another look at that.
Other questions? Sure. Commissioner Burrow?
Yeah, Kurt, as you mentioned a couple minutes ago, that people will look, but there's, besides the daytime traffic, there's just no space available right now. Where would you picture space being available? The corner lot, the Nivens Price building, things of that sort.
So you're referring downtown?
Yeah, just in the downtown section.
Yeah. That's a good question. I think that I don't want to get out ahead of some of the Main Street Board's conversations, but there has been a great deal of talk about how to best utilize the Niven Price building, for example. We have people frequently, very frequently, who will inquire about that space. And these are some existing businesses who we already have downtown who want to expand. We have people who are new. That's a thought. But then there's also, there's still some opportunities for infill in downtown. There's still some vacant properties altogether.
Yeah, let me ask it a different way. Are you, Buxton, and the Main Street Committee sharing ideas and information, and so maybe it's coming back in the Main Street planning?
Yeah.
So how's all that being integrated?
I would say that really, apart from the data and our ability to tailor and tell a story, we're kind of having to manage downtown somewhat independently of Buxton, because Buxton's forte is your national chains, and it's just not a fit for the downtown trade area. because of population, income, demographics, growth rate, traffic count, but it's also not a fit because they don't fit the aesthetic, the mystique of downtown. We use a lot of the national chains. So we're really using Buxton downtown on staff led to just tailor to answer questions from people. If that makes sense.
Yeah, just like to see, I guess I'd just like to see much more integrated ideas for downtown. I mean, we've seen the corner lot for how many years now, and the price for how many years now, and just to kind of get it to a point where we can move it forward. I realize we have to deal with that too here with our real estate issues.
Sure. Thank you.
Other questions? You, Jim? Okay. John? Couple suggestions. The citizen survey basically said they're not happy with the quality of retail coming to town, and then there was many, many pages of write-in comments. I don't know how many of them were directed towards that. Would suggest that you take a look at those and see if there's any insights there or Gotcha's ideas that perhaps can be used in preparation for the meeting. The other question that, or I guess the question I have is, I would love to hear, Buxton hasn't come back and said, initially they said, here's Waxhaw, and we had an inflated opinion of ourselves. I mean,
Right.
we did, and they told us, kind of slapped us across the face and wake up, this is how you're perceived. Now what's their vision for of where Waxhaw fits in? I'd really like to understand that. Because if we have to reset expectations or elevate expectations, then we need to know that. But we really haven't had an update on that in a couple of years. Third of all, if they know of things that are inhibitors that we as a board have impact on, it would be nice to know that, so we could consider it and decide if we want to, address things along those lines. I don't know what those would be, but those things I think should kind of pop out. And the other thing too is when you showed this chart, the downtown impact chart, the thing that struck me, and it really comes out in the survey, and it really is something that is a bigger question that we haven't addressed as a board. The quality of jobs we have here are not the quality of jobs that you have in Charlotte. And so where's our market there in terms of number of full-time jobs, in terms of what types of job based upon the vision we have for the town that we're really going after. So we don't set an expectation that we're going to be one of everything to everybody, because we just can't do that at this point in time. And so that's my way of saying, how do they recommend, or can we have a discussion of how do we target? What do we really, where do we want to prioritize instead of scattergun approach kind of thing? And I'm not saying that that's what you're doing, but if they have ideas, and if the answer is we can't, so be it. But where do we really want to target so we can make a concerted effort on things, if knowing that information?
Okay.
That makes sense? I mean,
Yep.
you don't have to agree. If you think I'm not making any sense, you can go ahead and tell me. This
Makes
is a work session, so you can say anything. So,
I can say anything.
other questions, comments? Commissioner Stewart.
I'm curious, the development that we all went through beside of Lowe's, where there was, I think, supposed to be a grocery store.
Carrington Square.
Yeah. Was that a Buxton generated, or was that something that they?
No, that was not.
So, that's just gone away.
The development are you asking if the development's gone away?
I mean, are they coming or not?
From what I understood, that after the end, I don't know if perhaps Lisa may know something. Was it related to the road improvements there? Okay,
Okay, thanks.
thank you.
Any other questions? Do you have what you need to come back on the 11th and have a robust discussion, or do you have other, do you want to push us harder?
I mean, is there any other, we've got them for a year and a half. Is there anything else that what would make you feel like like you had gotten the value out of the contract?
And this is probably more towards you, Greg, but I don't think we know how the relationship with what they're doing with Union County Economic Development and how that relates in, and are they building a regional thing? Because I know part of that pays for, or part of what we are contracted with pays for our participation in Union County Economic Development. So that would be a good one to understand. And then with that, do they look at it as a region? Are we competing with the towns across Union County? I mean, how's this working? How's Chris Platee have this working, or whoever he's hired? I mean, it'd be good to know that.
They have not hired anyone yet, no.
Okay.
And so actually we haven't even started to leverage Buxton for that.
Okay. Well, then how we would leverage it
Right.
and use it.
I think to get to your question about the value that we are contributing the data sets in lieu of about $15,000 of cash contribution.
Okay.
And how,
Commissioner Fitzgerald?
Have we shared all this information with the people who actually own property, large tracts of property around, and try to have them facilitate for us? There is, I don't know, 5 or 6 people that I can name off the top of my head that would be, have property that are ready to develop, but we need to share that information and have them, they may have another form to get into those people, to get them to come to Waxhaw.
yes, that's a good point. We have met with several of the large, or either, if not the owners, their representatives of some of the larger tracts and different potential developments in town. But if you know of any specific that we might be forgetting about or have overlooked, we'd love to consider sharing it with them as well.
What would be, this might be thinking too much outside the box, but we'd put the to-do on Chris Platee. But it would be great if Buxton's coming to town to host a session with Buxton, with what we're doing, and with the landowners, because we have donut holes. Union County is in Waxhaw, so bring as many together and say, hey, here's what we're seeing, and here's the demographics, and here's what's working different spots across this western Union County, and maybe turn it around and actually share, hey, we're going down this path of here, apps on the mobile, so you can be a little bit more proactive. I would venture to say that Chris might have luck getting people to come to a meeting, and to open the door, which then would create more prospecting opportunity for you. Just a thought. I don't know if he can do it by the 13th, but you know what? He hasn't returned my call in a while, so we'll push him a little bit.
Possibly entice them by getting people
Yeah.
for dinner or something, so that they're always attracted for food.
Yeah, no, but that's a good thought. We can look at that. I think Buxton would be open to it too. They've offered to do something similar before.
Yeah, I think, do something a little bit more proactive that way to have the county generate some leads for us as well in a different way, I think would be good. Yes, Commissioner Stewart?
Your question for you, when you've talked to Buxton, when we're talking about one what is it, 2.5 years, one has happened out of 40. Is that mainly, are they saying mainly because of the daytime traffic? Is their number one issue, that we're not getting more?
There's a number one. I think that I would answer that in two ways. The biggest challenges are daytime traffic counts, population density. But that's on one hand. On the other hand, just because you haven't seen a lot of signed leases or shovels in the ground, it doesn't mean that they're not. It's not still a part of the road to success, I guess I would say. I mean, we've had several, as I mentioned, retailers who are very interested in the town, and before this, we weren't even on the radar with them. So it could happen, something could drop in 5 years as a result of this work that we do today. It's just a long process with, as you know, with real estate. So I wouldn't want to use a 1 out of 40 as a benchmark for the success or failure of the whole effort, I guess. Or a measure of its success, a better way of saying it.
Other questions?
Just one last one. In that same vein, when do you think, or you probably haven't had a chance to think about this, think about when it might be appropriate, if we're not getting the results, that we need to pull the plug? What do we have in mind? We've got to have something in mind. I understand what you're saying. We've been at it for 2 years. This is a long-term process. So we spend so much money per year on the consultant. We're expecting to get so much back in tax revenue, et cetera. Have you had a chance to sit down and think it out? Are we looking, is there like a point of no return after 4 years or 5 years that we should really consider, are we being successful or aren't we? You don't answer me now, but just think ahead a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand what the original purpose of the contract was, which was to actually get an understanding of Waxhaw when that was signed back in 14 or 15.
End of 15.
In the end of 15, where we had no idea what our persona was as a town. And how do we address that? We just had not done anything.
Correct.
A previous study was part of the Highway 16 corridor plan, which was a brief, just in that moment analysis of the market, which basically said we appeal to everybody. But we didn't, which has misset some expectations. One thing that I think we could do a better job of, where we have the little wins, the positive experiences, let's make sure we promote the heck out of that. We've had some. They're not the big, robust. I thought it was great that you started to use the Here We Grow out on the league's website to get, kind of those templates going. But wherever we have some success and wherever we're using different incentives to get people, even if it's not our incentives, if it's historic tax credits like in the mill, let's make sure we promote them so people really hear that story as a part of and our event structure. Certainly it brings people, bodies in a different sequence to downtown. And is there a mark? I don't know if Buxton has ever looked at our event schedule and said what kind of retailers would play in that space, because you're sitting there and we're bringing thousands of people down here over 26, 30 events of the year. I don't know how that plays. I absolutely do not know how that plays. So, maybe there's some things there too.
It's a good thought.
Maybe not, so.
Is Buxton a 3-year contract?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is we've been through 1.5.
All right, anything else? Do you guys want to take a question from the audience?
It's a workshop, you can say anything, okay?
You can't, we can. Go ahead, Earl.
But this is, I can't pass up an opportunity
say something good about Waxhaw. And Kurt has no idea that I was going to say this, and neither did I until I started listening to the presentation. But retail recruitment, two things he mentioned were recognizing who you are and getting on the radar. And I want to share an experience yesterday morning that was a big blip on Waxhaw's radar screen. And then I'm going to hit Kurt with it. I was walking down North Main Street, headed towards the Nivens Price building, and all of a sudden I see a young lady standing in front of Art Alley, just one young lady, and she's got a camera, and I thought she was photographing something, and she turned and asked me, would I take a picture? I stepped over, and there were probably 20 young folks there. They appeared to be between about 19 and 22 years old, 3 or 4 adults, so I snapped the photo. I very quickly found out that they were from University of South Carolina, Lancaster. At first I didn't even know that Kurt was in the crowd until they started breaking up when I handed the camera back. And then I saw Kurt, but what I wanted to share was that group was very, very positive about Waxhaw, that they were here, they were interns, and they were coming to see something that they needed to know about. And in less than 2 minutes, they had a very, very positive outlook. So I'm going to let Kurt go ahead and tell you, because I was impressed that the downtown manager was leading a delegation from the University of South Carolina through Waxhaw. And if you want to get the word out, get 20 young folks on social media talking about what a great town it is. I didn't throw you under the bus, but I did put you on the spot. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And actually, thank you, Earl. That's a good point. It was really exciting to be able to share Waxhaw with this group. They are from USC Lancaster, part of a public health centered foundation called the J. Marion Sims Foundation, and they were interested in learning about Waxhaw from a walkability and from just a general well-being standpoint. It fits into our branding again. And so we showed them around Waxhaw, and we had a question and answer time, and actually Lisa McCarter was there as well, sharing the thread trail. They were extremely interested in that, and just throughout the conversation, it was really encouraging. I think we get down in the, we're working hard on everything, but when this group saw Waxhaw as this mecca, this beacon of we're doing everything right, and coming from where they were in their town, there was so much they wanted to learn about how we did things here, and so I think that was really kind of a good reminder. And so thanks, Lisa, too, for doing the thread trail piece of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Earl. That's a good point.
Any other questions, comments? Motions to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
See you at 6:30.